Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, live from the Hudson Valley, just outside New York City, and I am located in the dirty, dirty ATL shouting. All right, Brock, let's get right into it. Your man is still lying. The Mad King lies again and again and again, saying he's done over 200 deals. 200 deals. There are only 193 countries in the world. How'd you get 200 deals? What are they doing? They're just not good at governing. They don't know how this shit works. And it's so frustrating that they'll just lie.
The question there is there actually one deal that's been cut? Like, can we name a single country in which we have like a revised tariff agreement papered up and in place? And I haven't seen or heard of one. So I think the number 0 versus Trump's 200, meaning more deals. That's one per penguin, right?
Right.
So, right, it's an epic fail. Now today they're rolling back tariffs on auto parts coming in because GM and the other automakers basically cried bloody murder and probably
Right.
do a ton of layoffs, right? And then that would just make them look bad. So that's getting rolled back. But
Right.
the way I'm starting to see it is that the tariff, it's so bad because in the end, it's Apple and the big automaker and Walmart and Target can go in there, and big companies maybe can get some relief from the tariffs. But the
Right.
small business is getting crushed.
Right.
And
That's the scary
small
part.
business, which supposedly makes up 60-70% of employment and this and that, getting crushed. So basically, once again, the oligarchy, the rich will get richer, will be able to figure it out. And small companies, small business people throughout the country they got no recourse.
Well, Brock, how are they going to survive? Right? We're talking now about all these ships that are not coming to the US because the shipping is not happening. Also, you got companies that sold heavily discounted goods like Shein and Temu that are now adding the import cost to your receipt so you can see. So, like, I posted a receipt the other day from Shein, and the import cost was more than the dress. So you're paying like triple. You buy an $11 dress, you pay $22 to get it into the country to get it. And now it's not a discount anymore. You can go to Ross or go to Burlington. I mean, and Americans love cheap goods, right? That's one thing we're known for is bargain hunting and bargain shopping. And so then when you talk about small businesses, the lifeblood of small businesses is these mom and pop shops that get the goods from overseas and they're able to sell them at a profit and stay in business. They're not living a life of luxury. They're not living in gated communities, the large majority of small businesses, right? These people are not making a mint. So why do you want to crush them? Our economy, let me remind our viewers again, our economy was the envy of the world coming out of COVID, which was a disaster for every economy around the globe. We bounced back huge. We did not need tariffs. December of 2024 economy, envy of the world, and this guy comes in and breaks it just because. The question is why.
The question is why, because he, in his deluded mind, thinks that like America's getting screwed because he didn't really understand tariffs or understand that the entire world order was set up to America's benefit. And by unraveling it, we're now America in decline and the rest of the world is figuring out how to work around us. So it's really going to be hard for us to get back on our footing. But a few responses to your comment. Number one, Jamie Dimon at Chase comes out today and says, recession is now a best case scenario. I guess that would mean depression is worst case. Finally coming around. Where was he 3 months ago when he could have done something about it?
Exactly.
Photos of the day, I saw 100 of them. Photos of ports empty with no ships there or no cargo on the docks because there's nothing going on and nothing getting shipped in. Third thing, found it funny that when Amazon added the tariff cost to their receipts, the White House went ripshit And Jeff Bezos got an angry call from a pissed off Trump, and Amazon reversed course within 2 hours. So you're not
Wow.
going to see the itemized tariff on the Amazon bills. The prices are going to be up, but you're not going
Right.
to know what portion of that was tariffs. And it got me to thinking of one last thing. I remember that Latino vote. Remember that Latino vote was working its
Ooh,
back towards MAGA. And one of the reasons that we were being told, there were two reasons. One is they didn't mind the deportations because it was only going to be people that, quote, didn't come the right way. Well, that hasn't turned out to be the case. And the second one was that Latinos are apparently disproportionately small business owners. And they were willing to swallow some things because Trump was the economics president that was going to help make them wealthier as they move themselves up the social hierarchy here in America. And now
right.
small businesses are going to get crushed by the tariffs. So I'm
Because
just
we don't do
waiting for
anything here.
like a little more of a voice from that community because it seems to me they should be extremely disgruntled.
Right. And you would think that, with a possible depression on the horizon, right? We've not seen that in our lifetime. And we were born in the 60s. And we've not seen anything as remember the 72 gas crisis? We were toddlers, but I remember the long lines. Hold it, say it again. Say it again.
I was muted again. You sit in the long line and it was an odd or even day. You can only go and get gas on certain days, and you'd be
Based
like
on the license
40
plate.
cars deep and waiting like an hour with your mom in the front, just pissed
Right.
off in the back of the
Right.
station and just to fill the tank. So yeah, I remember those days vaguely as as a youngster.
Right. But now what we're going to see is empty shelves everywhere in your favorite stores. This is like Dick's and, Sports Academy, and these places are not going to be immune from this. Nobody's getting anything from overseas. And we don't build anything here. And I'm surprised that people don't understand that, right? Because it costs too much. The labor costs too much here. And the labor force that we do have here, we don't pay them fairly, right? Those are our immigrants that we just packed up and shipped out and sent to El Salvador, or we scared them right out of the country. And I remember back in Georgia, here in Georgia, and I can't remember what year it was, but they started saying, oh, it must have been like 2012, 2013, you got to have a state ID in order to be able to vote and be able to work and, pay your taxes and all that stuff. People hauled ass out of here, right? Because they thought it was the fastest way, to get deported or to end up in the system. We had nobody picking the crops. There were so many crops that went bad all across the South. This is happening. And what kills me is the red states are getting hammered by your boy. And congratulations, red states. You can now pick your own crops.
Crushed. They're getting
Right?
crushed. The farmers are getting crushed. Look, I get it. There's an argument that I agree with that we need to bring more manufacturing back to the U.S. But putting in tariffs on 193 countries and a bunch of penguins on an island, with a plan that's not thought out, and trying to turn around like this cruise ship, overnight, like was just an idiotic way of doing it. And we're not, oh, it's going to be short-term pain for long-term gain. We're not going to be able to get through the pain. It won't be short-term. You can't turn manufacturing around in quarters. That takes years to decades. So you put policies and incentives in place. So it's just done totally, totally wrong. But yeah, the farmers are going to get crushed. The red states are going to get hurt. Plus, Trump's they're not even getting FEMA money for like the floods and the tornadoes they've been hit with, right? Sarah Huckabee Sanders can't even get a handout, right?
Right. What's that all about?
And to think that no one learns the lesson that Trump has zero friends. He lives day by day. Nothing you did in the past means shit. So Bezos kissed his ass forever and still got spanked and slapped around like a bitch this morning, right? And then had to turn tail. Huckabee Sanders lied for 4 years, 3 years straight every day. And now she can't
With a
get
straight face.
a nickel for Arkansas, and she's the governor. A red state
Exactly.
backs Trump more than anyone. The guy
Ex-
knows no loyalty. It's only about him, and they're all going to lose in the end. The
Yeah.
whole MAX movement's going to lose. They're all going down with him.
And they don't get it. They don't see it coming. They keep lying to themselves. They keep coming up with, well, they keep watching Fox and OAN and these and Newsmax and these crazy ass networks with these conspiracy theories that tell them the total opposite of the truth. And so they find themselves in this repetitive pattern, of waiting for, some Hail Mary. It ain't coming. Nobody has ever come out and said, I've been friends with Donald Trump for 25, 30, 45 years. I've known him since you've never heard that. You don't have any friends.
There's no friends. It's transactional. The thing is, Trump can gaslight about the polls and say the media is lying and you can gaslight on shit that's not quantifiable. But
Right.
People know what they paid for their eggs. People know what they paid for gas when they filled up the tank. People have the receipt like you do for
Right.
the online purchase they made with the extra 140% in there from the tariff. You can't tell someone they're not looking at a receipt. It's dollars, right? Like, you could be a pathological liar, but there's just certain things that you can't, you just can't bullshit people on.
Right.
And I feel like it's what you're seeing in the approval ratings is it's just chipping away. Trump's in decline. I don't think it's reversible for him.
Right.
So the question comes to how much decline, how weak does the Mad King need to look where his own followers, his posse, his Lisa Murkowskis, stop fearing him and start fearing hopefully the people, which is why we need to protest, or just start fearing the fact that sentiment has turned so much that out of their own selfish motives, they start to back away and distance themselves from Trump and his policies.
Yeah. It's interesting that poll came out talking about 45% of the people polled gave Trump an F when it comes to handling the economy. I think it was an NPR poll, Harris poll, and they don't, everyone's lost confidence in this guy. He obviously does not know what he's doing. He's also in cognitive decline, as we've discussed. And you're right. So my question to you is, do the Murkowskis of the world, the Rand Pauls of the world, the McConnells of the world, do they fear Trump or do they fear MAGA?
They fear MAGA, but they look at Trump as the guy who can trigger the the army, in essence, that he'll, which is kind of true and not 100% true, right? Because Trump very often follows MAGA, and MAGA often follows Trump, right? Very symbiotic relationship.
No doubt. So,
you would hope some of them are so fucking old, like McConnell, and one foot in the grave already, that he'd kind of look at the world and go, what am I doing? In my last breaths, am I going to follow this fucker that I hate? And we know McConnell hates him and kicks himself for not, burying Trump.
I mean, how do you not stand up to a guy that disparages your wife? I don't care what's going on with you and your wife. Somebody insults your wife in front of the national community, international community, and you sit there and take it and have no retort at all? My wife would punch me in the face.
So it's interesting. It's odd timing, bad timing for MAGA, that right now with this plummeting approval ratings, Canada just given a FU, the tariffs hitting everybody, that now is the time that they're going back into session and drawing up a budget that cuts Medicaid and provides the tax cuts for the 0.01%. The timing is as bad as it could be. But are they all just going to close their eyes, hold their nose, and just follow along with Trump, lockstep and push it through, which, as we know, they can do because they got the numbers in both houses and they could do it if they all stay in line.
Yep. So tonight, Midas Touch is going to have an interesting event. They're having the all governors town hall. So they got Pritzker, Hochul, Tim Walz, and one other. Oh, I think the Massachusetts governor too. So they're going to be there talking about a plan of action, how to deal with the impending doom that's coming our way should MAGA stay in lockstep, through these budget negotiations. And they've got to figure out a plan to help their constituency, right? Because, these people are going to get, I finally understand why Republicans didn't want you to have health care. They don't want you to have Medicare, Medicaid, or Medicaid rather, so they can have these tax cuts, right? It's all about me being able to keep more of my money and not having to help you, get the health care that you need. And it's disgusting to me. It's greed to me. Greed prevails in everything we look at now, from the NFL, to Congress, to Amazon and Bezos and Zuckerbergs and these guys. It's all about the dough. And, so it'll be interesting tonight. I'm going to be watching this Midas Touch event, to see what kind of a counterattack these governors have come up with. They're all governors, of pretty much blue states. You got, Massachusetts, Minnesota. Who else we got? I just mentioned New York.
Illinois and New York, yeah. So, Pritzker's been spitting fire. I saw a thing, Walls did a town hall at Harvard the other night. I watched most of that, because he also has to lament what he thinks went wrong and, why they lost. And he takes ownership of that.
Right.
And, Hochul's situation's interesting. There's a rumor today that either Elise Stefanik or Mike Lawler might run against her as governor on the Republican side. Now, Lawler got his ass handed to him in a town hall 2 days ago, so I'm sure he wants out because he's in a swing district, and I don't think he has a chance in hell of holding his seat, so he's got to figure out his next move because he's such a bullshit middle-of-the-road, pretend to be moderate, blah, blah, but he's votes in lockstep with MAGA, and, they're just...
Right.
The people they're all going to get hurt by Trump's approval rating being in the East. Right. And of course, we know doesn't want to go back to Western New York and then the far corner. She almost got, and so she'll take Albany in instead. But yeah, I mean, those governors are kind of screwed.
Right.
Because they're going to lose Medicaid money and they're going to have to figure out how to keep, their constituents alive with the federal government that doesn't care if their constituents are alive.
Right. And a federal government that may not be there come 2026, right? We don't know what's going to happen down the road here, 17 months from now or whenever November rolls around. Quite frankly, I don't think these guys plan on having an election in 2026. I don't think they plan on having midterms. I think they plan on keeping the majority, keeping the Mad King in there. They're already printing up the 2028 hats. We talked about that yesterday. So, these governors are really, it's going to take all 50 governors, to come together and come up with a plan, to generate some kind of system, that helps people get the health care they need.
But 26, 28 or 30 of them, whatever the number is, are Republicans. So they're not going to come around. Like, they're just swallowing what Trump's feeding them, as bad as it is for their people.
Right.
So they, I think the big question, like sort of in MAGA world, and I guess on a political side of things, is Trump's plummeting approval rating going to trigger any change in behavior from anyone in the ecosystem? What I hope it does, and I think it's doing, is it's definitely emboldening Democrats to be more aggressive in their rhetoric. Right? Pritzker with the disruptive talk. And the other interesting thing going on the Democratic side, while Chuck Schumer remains the most tone-deaf human being in America, Dick Durbin is stepping aside on the Senate side. And now for health reasons, Jerry Connolly, who is the Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, who got that job when a lot of people were pushing for AOC to get it, but they gave it to the old-timer. He's stepping away because his cancer has recurred. Now, I wish he wasn't sick, but I wish he would have stepped away for other reasons. But I think some of the old guard on the Democratic side are saying, we're not as welcome as we used to be, or maybe they're starting to hear more voices saying we need a younger generation, right? You got David Hogg out there saying he's going to primary a bunch of these people, and they're probably like, yeah, I'll get primaried, I'll step aside.
Right.
As Biden did, I'll step aside for, quote, the good of the party, because the party needs more energy, right? Of course, we need more people protesting. We need more people spitting fire. We need more people doing what Crockett does and AOC's does and Bernie's doing and Hakeem and Booker did the other day and Pritzker's doing, right? Like, we need high energy. We're in a knife fight. How do you win a knife fight strategy and mentality? Not like Schumer, like, we got the protocols. He's still like, he had a sharply worded letter he talked about on the Sunday shows. Sharply worded letter to Trump about something. It's like, come on, fucking guy.
Trump cares. Like Trump cares. But it's interesting too because now people are starting to feel the pain of these cuts, right? Another one of the big cuts and attacks that Trump is engaging in, as we're keeping it real here in black and white, is the removal of certain items from the African American History Museum and the Smithsonian. And this to me is maddening, right? This to me makes me want to march on Washington, right, and tear the place apart because this is why parents today, right, need to be having fact-based conversations with their children to help them understand what the true pillars of America are, right? No one is proud of slavery. No one is asking white America to be mad at themselves for our history. All we want is an honest depiction of what happened because we built this ship for free. So give an honest and truthful and accurate portrayal of our American history, and let's stop whitewashing it. We've been doing this for years. I didn't learn black if it wasn't for my parents. I wouldn't have learned any black history except for black couple of things in Black History Month during my time in the Lakeland school system.
Yeah, absolutely not. I'm just trying to think of Washington Carver and like Sojourner Truth. You learn like two things in 250
Right.
years. But here's the bad news for Black America is that as Trump's approval declines and as he loses like his footing on the economy, he's gonna play. He's got to throw more red meat to his base. So he's got to play culture shit more and more. So he's bringing back what Christopher Columbus, right? He's bringing them back was the big story yesterday. That's just throwing a bone to white America. I don't care if you've decided this was a bad guy who did shitty things. We're going to celebrate him again. So yeah, we're going to go after the, African American wing of the Smithsonian because we need to devalue black people again. But he's got to do something to keep that support of that white America MAGA base that now is, living worse because everything's getting more expensive for them and their farm is going, right? So he's got to throw them the social bones and make them feel like, happy that they're still in charge of shit.
Yeah.
So that's going to roll downhill. And I think black America is going to have, that's why white politicians and white leaders need to step up and say some shit about this.
Right.
And
culture war.
Say we support Black America and we will reverse this shit when we're back in charge again.
Right. Just like you had people in middle America, Milwaukee, coming out and marching for the immigrants and the unfair treatment they've been receiving. We need our white politicians to step up for Black America as well. But the other thing Black America needs to do, I feel like, as a child of the 80s, right, is we need our art to change. And when I say art, I mean our music, right? When I listened to our music in the East, it had a message. It meant something. We had Public Enemy, right? We had Boogie Down Productions with messages, Poor Righteous Teachers with messages and Black consciousness on the mind, right? Talking about the ills that America has heaped on Black America, but yet we still manage to thrive and survive. And so until the art, like the music today talks about, money, women, degrading images and depictions of women. It's over the top, flamboyant on riches and making money, and it has no real socially conscious value. And so our art needs to change because you know why? That's what's impacting our youth. Right, I heard Soulja Boy talking about why he performed at Trump's crypto ball, and it was the most ignorant thing I had ever heard. And I wish I could snatch him up by his collar and just well, Kamala didn't call me and Obama didn't call me. They didn't put any money in my pocket. Trump put money in my pocket, and that's the key, right? It's all about the money. It's basically playing into the same narrative as the same thing we criticize Bezos and Zuckerberg and these other billionaires for.
Just like I'm kind of unhappy with Saquon Barkley for playing golf and palling around with Trump, and I'm just like he'll regret it in 10 years. So I'm not even going to go that overboard on it. But a couple of things to your point. I thought the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl halftime show was going to trigger like a little bit of a movement in the arts to being
Right.
more, in essence,
Me too.
rebellious and like power and prideful. And the other thing to keep an eye on is maybe like Beyonce's out there with her Cowboy Carter tour again, right? And that
Right.
sells out. And, she's kind of like tried to, you know, recover back like her roots of like, hey,
Right.
country music, right? I'm from Houston,
Right.
Southern as you are, right?
Right.
Like, and to see if that, sort of resonates. It's probably still a mostly female audience. I think you may be referring more on the male side of performers, right? You'd want
Yep.
to see it.
But the women too. But the women too, because the black female right now is the most educated person in America right now. They understand the value of academics and they are going for it. Black women are getting degrees. You walk around Atlanta, man, and you see some educated black women, doctors, right? Attorneys, MBAs, CPAs. I went to if you go to the National Black MBA conference, it's shoulder to shoulder. A lot of women, probably the crowd is predominantly women. So that is the impact, right? Because those are the people who are raising our leaders of tomorrow, right? And showing them the path. I mean, everybody's a rapper today because you got a computer and a cell phone, right? But, that stuff doesn't last. That's why you see guys that are desperate and need money, willing to go perform at the crypto ball, right? Because they made him an offer he can't refuse. I don't know why Snoop did it. Snoop had just coming off the Olympics. He didn't need the money. He couldn't have needed the money. But, it is what it is. But I think like Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance, we've got to see more of the rebellious style of art. Going back to the Public Enemy days, my favorite group probably of all time, and because of the message, everything they did had a message, and it was why they didn't get a lot of radio play, right? And then we got into gangster hip hop and never look back, and we can go back. Yeah, we can go back and look at the correlation between gangster hip hop and the emergence of the prison population, right? I mean, it just shot through the roof in 91, 92, and we can go back and look at where the conscious message stopped and where gangster hip hop began, and now,
You're kind of throwing down the gauntlet at people in the arts, and I would throw the sports world in there too, in the way that I feel like all politicians can't stay silent and have to say, and you can say, and politicians are paid to do it. It's actually their job. So I have more of an issue with white politicians who won't be, come out and say I'm pro immigrant, I'm pro DEI, and like say
right,
this is a part of my platform. I'm positive on these things.
right,
Some people will say, like, well, that's too much to throw on them and they're just trying to make a living. But I think in these times where we're staring down authoritarianism, it's incumbent
exactly,
on everyone in every moment, which is why I'm disappointed in Saquon Barkley. I like Saquon Barkley. He's obviously a great athlete, but like in my mind, should have known better. Like,
right,
don't let your, like, his comment was, well, I respect the office, but just know you're being played.
right.
You may think it's not a political, but they think it's political, and they're putting it out on X and on whatever Truth Social. They're playing up the fact that you like Trump and
There,
enjoy the day with him and what a charming guy he is. They're playing it for the political angle. So don't just be a dupe, right? Yeah. Hey, Jalen Hurts wasn't there with the wide receiver. What's his name? Brown wasn't there.
yeah,
There's a laundry list of guys that didn't show up. But also, shouldn't just be the black players. I'm like the white players too.
right,
You don't give a shit about
exactly,
you guys get a free pass. No, I think everyone has to make a statement in every opportunity in every moment that they have, and that
no
there's
doubt,
no free passes in America as we are right now. Like it's a knife fight.
right,
So you don't get to just you don't get to walk around the knife fight and over on the side say, well, I want to make a few dollars,
right,
while the knife fight's going on. Like, because you're aware of what's happening around you.
absolutely,
So I think
absolutely,
in my book, there's no free passes on anything.
right,
Every moment is a moment where you have a chance, you make a decision, and you decide whether you're speaking up or whether you're being complicit.
yep, absolutely.
Pritzker, I think that's I guess I hope that message resonates through the Black community. I think that's what Pritzker's trying to tell white America, that like, stop, like these are things we're for. We got to be loud that we're for them if we truly are. And if we're
Yep.
not, he actually called out the middle of the road Democrats, who were afraid to say they're pro DEI.
Right.
They're afraid to
Right.
say pro immigrant. And he said, and he's big on LGBT and afraid to say they're pro for trans rights.
Right.
They hide.
Speak what you believe. Speak it. Speak it into existence. All right, buddy. That's a great last word to finish up on, man. Always a pleasure to see you. We'll continue tomorrow or...
No, not tomorrow. As you know, I'm hitting the road. I'm going to see some red states
America.
Today, so we won't talk tomorrow. We'll talk in a couple days, but I'll report back again on what I'm seeing here in the world.
Sounds good. Travel safe, my friend.
Okay.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.